Psychological contract. So what is a psychological contract? Now, if you go Google psychological contract, you would probably get something like this. It will probably contain something about how a psychological contract represents the mutual beliefs and informal obligations between an employer and employee, and how it is different from the written contract relationship and defines the detailed practicality of work to be done. To put it in simple terms, a psychological contract is nothing but an agreement between two entities which is not put down on paper. So have you ever wondered how a psychological contract came into picture? There are actually a set of theories and principles that help to give rise to the contract. Allow me to iterate them to you in no particular order. The first is social exchange theory. The second is social contract theory. The third is equity theory. Fourth being cognitive dissonance theory. Fifth is motivation theory. Sixth is organizational justice. So now that we know what made a psychological contract, let's see what makes one. For this, we owe full credit to the iceberg model. From the iceberg, we can see that the upper portion of the iceberg shows that the basic relationship between the employee and employer is looked at from the simple equation of work and pay. However, being an iceberg, we should be ready to delve deeper into the situation, and we can see the employer side has factors such as loyalty, supervision, innovation, leadership. And on the other side of the spectrum, we see that the employee looks for things like recognition, security, safety, care, benefits. Now that hopefully we know what makes a psychological contract, let's look at the phases of the contract. The first is the pre-employment phase. The initial expectation of the employee through professional norms and societal beliefs that may be influenced by information gathered about the organization and how occupations are portrayed by the media. Then we see the recruitment phase. This is the first instance of communication involving exchanges of promise between employer and employee during the recruiting process. Then we move to early socialization. Promises exchange continue with both parties actively continuing their search for information about one another through multiple sources. Then we see later experiences. The promises exchange and search information slowed down as the employee is no longer considered new. There may be new changes to the psychological contract introduced at this stage. The final stage is evaluation. The existing psychological contract is evaluated and possibly revised, and it is determined whether the revision is needed. Incentives and costs of change impact revision. Sometimes, in all contracts, there is a chance that the contract may not be followed or adhered to. This is called a breach. A breach in psychological contract occurs if the employee perceives that their firm or its agents have failed to deliver on what they perceive was promised, or vice versa. So what impact does this breach have? It could lead to a certain degree of anger within the employees, may lead to the employees getting upset, frustration has a chance of seeping in, a realization of betrayal crosses the employee's mind, the employee feels disappointed and disheartened. These are a few basic details about the psychological contract and what it contains. Hopefully it makes sense and gives a good overview of the topic. Thank you.